What God really wants from you this year, let me start by saying this. God is not standing over you with a checklist, waiting for you to mess up. He's not counting your failures, and he's not shocked by your weaknesses. God already knows you, and he still chose you. So the big question isn't, what do I need to do for God this year? The real question is, what does God actually want from me? And here's the good news. It's simpler than you think. God wants your heart, not your perfection. That's something a lot of people struggle to believe because we live in a world that rewards performance. We're taught early on that love, approval, and acceptance come after we get things right. So without realizing it, many people carry that same mindset into their relationship with God. They think they have to clean themselves up first, fix every flaw, conquer every bad habit, and then maybe God will be pleased with them. But that kind of thinking keeps people stuck in guilt, frustration, and fear, and it was never God's plan. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to stay surrendered. God already knows your weaknesses. He's not surprised by your struggles, and he's not offended by your humanity. What matters to him is whether your heart stays open, teachable, and willing. A surrendered heart says, God, I don't have this all figured out, but I trust you enough to keep following you anyway. That kind of honesty invites God into your life in a powerful way. Perfection focuses on outward behavior, but surrender focuses on inward posture. You can look good on the outside and still be far from God on the inside. At the same time, you can be a work in progress, still dealing with issues, and be deeply pleasing to God because your heart is aligned with him. God would rather have someone who falls but keeps getting back up than someone who pretends they never fall at all. Staying surrendered means you don't quit when you mess up. It means you don't run from God when you fail, you run to him. Too many people think failure disqualifies them, but often it's the very place where God wants to meet them. Surrender says, God, I need you in this area, instead of hiding, excusing, or blaming. And when you live that way, God begins to change you from the inside out, not through pressure, but through grace. Growth doesn't come from trying harder, it comes from yielding more. The more you surrender your thoughts, your attitudes, your reactions, and your plans, the more room God has to work. He's patient, he's faithful, and he's committed to you far more than you're committed to him. When your heart stays surrendered, God takes responsibility for shaping your life, guiding your steps, and helping you become who he created you to be. Obedience in small things opens big doors, even though most people don't like that part. We want the big miracle, the sudden breakthrough, the dramatic change. But God usually works through daily choices that seem ordinary and sometimes even inconvenient. Small acts of obedience don't get applause. They don't feel powerful in the moment. Saying the right thing when you want to snap back, choosing integrity when cutting corners would be easier, showing up when you feel tired, forgiving when you'd rather hold a grudge. Those are the moments that shape your future. God watches what you do in the unseen places because faithfulness there reveals the condition of your heart. Many people pray for more responsibility, more influence, more blessing, but resist obedience in the simple things God has already placed in front of them. They want God to trust them with more, while ignoring what he's asking of them now. Obedience is not about convenience, it's about trust. Every time you obey God in something small, you're saying, God, I trust you more than my feelings, my logic, or my comfort. That kind of trust builds spiritual strength. It positions you for doors you didn't even know were coming. God doesn't need big displays to work big results. One obedient step can set a chain reaction in motion that affects your life for years. You may not see immediate results, but obedience is never wasted. God keeps record of faithfulness, and he knows exactly when to promote, when to increase, and when to open the next door. What feels small to you is often significant to God because it proves you're ready to be led and not just blessed. God is more interested in who you're becoming than what you're achieving, because achievements can impress people, but character determines longevity. You can reach a goal and still be empty, stressed and insecure if your inner life isn't healthy. God cares about your attitudes, your motives, and how you treat people along the way. He's shaping your patience, your humility, your self-control, and your ability to trust him when things don't go as planned. Those qualities matter far more than titles or accomplishments. It's easy to measure life by results, but God measures growth by transformation. Sometimes progress looks like learning to respond calmly instead of reacting emotionally. Sometimes success looks like saying no to something good so you can say yes to something God wants. When God slows you down, it's often because he's doing deep work on the inside. If he develops your character first, what he gives you later won't overwhelm you or pull you away from him. God is building a foundation strong enough to carry the future he has in mind, and that kind of work takes time, intention, and trust. This year is about alignment, not hustle, because God never asked you to exhaust yourself trying to force things to happen. Hustle says everything depends on you, your effort, your connections, and your ability to make things work. Alignment says your responsibility is to walk with God, listen to his voice, and move when he says move. So many people are tired, overwhelmed, and burned out, not because they're doing bad things, but because they're doing too many things without checking if God actually asked them to. Being busy does not automatically mean you're being obedient. When your life is aligned with God, there's a sense of peace even when things aren't perfect. That doesn't mean challenges disappear, but it means you're not constantly striving, comparing, or panicking about the future. Alignment brings clarity. It helps you know when to say yes, and just as importantly, when to say no. Hustle pushes you to prove yourself, but alignment reminds you that your worth is already settled. You don't need to run after validation when you're secure in God's approval. A lot of people mistake pressure for purpose. If something constantly produces anxiety, fear, and confusion, it's worth pausing and asking whether it's truly God-led or self-driven. God may stretch you, but he won't crush you. When he leads, there's grace to sustain you. Alignment means you're moving at God's pace, not rushing ahead because you're afraid of missing out or falling behind. What's meant for you will not require you to sacrifice your peace to obtain it. Walking in alignment also means trusting God's timing. Hustle wants everything now. Alignment understands that delays are often protection. God sees what you don't see, and he knows when you're ready for the next step. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is slow down, listen, and realign your priorities. When your thoughts, decisions, and desires line up with God's will, things begin to fall into place with less resistance. You were never created to carry the weight of your life alone. When you choose alignment over hustle, you're choosing partnership with God instead of pressure from yourself. You stop forcing doors and start walking through the ones God opens. You begin to experience a life that may not always be easy, but is steady, grounded, and guided by peace rather than driven by fear or exhaustion. God is calling you to trust him, especially in the areas where you don't understand what he's doing. Trust is easy when things make sense, when the plan is clear, and when the outcome looks promising. The real test of trust comes when answers are delayed, doors close unexpectedly, and your prayers seem to meet silence. In those moments, it's tempting to take control, rush ahead, or assume God has forgotten you. But trust means believing that God is still working, even when you can't see the progress. There are seasons when God intentionally withholds details, not to frustrate you, but to deepen your dependence on him. If he explained everything in advance, you wouldn't need faith. Trust grows when you choose to lean on God's character rather than your circumstances. You may not understand the timing, the process, or the path, but you can be confident in who God is. He is faithful, consistent, and always aware of what's happening in your life. Trust also requires releasing the need to control outcomes. Many people believe in God, but struggle to trust him fully because they want to stay in charge. True trust says, God, I don't need to see the whole picture to obey you. It means following his direction even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. Every step taken in trust strengthens your spiritual confidence and reminds you that God is capable of leading you where you've never been before. When you trust God, you stop worrying about the future, if it's uncertain or unsafe. God is already present in the days you haven't reached yet. He knows what you will need, who will meet, and what doors will open at the right time. Trust allows you to rest in that truth instead of living in constant anxiety and fear. Choosing trust doesn't mean you won't feel doubt or uncertainty. It means you decide not to let those feelings control your decisions. Each time you choose trust over fear, you grow stronger, more grounded, and more secure in your walk with God. Over time, trust becomes less about getting answers and more about living with confidence that God's guidance, care, and wisdom are steady, reliable, and enough